Doctor of Veterinary Medicine and a PhD, and she combined these into a lifelong passion with 20 years of genetic research to create programs that educate people about how the foods we can change, how the foods we eat can change expression to either cause disease or promote health and wellness. Dr. Oliveira began her career path in her native Brazil with a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. While she's still pursuing her professional training, she discovered a passion for research. She went on to complete her postgraduate studies in Brazil and then did her postdoctoral studies in immunogenetics and functional genomics at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. She is the former founding director of the first integrated medicine program and is a visiting clinical faculty at the Department of Public Health Sciences at the School of Medicine at the University of California, Davis. She is currently working with the School of Medicine curriculum design team to integrate topics related to preventive and lifestyle medicine into the new 4-year curriculum. Dr. Oliveira is working at the local, regional, and global levels as a proponent of a healthful, food-based diet. She helps people develop healthy habits on their journey to a plant-based lifestyle and permanent weight loss. We are very fortunate to have Dr. Oliveira with us today. Doctor, welcome to Chat and Chew.
Oh, hello, everyone. Good morning from California. It's so nice to wake up and see so many beautiful faces on Zoom. It's a great opportunity for us. That's the good thing about the pandemic, right? It got us not isolated, but it got us all so much closer together. And that's the reason why I'm able to be here talking to you today from Zoom. Should I start my presentation?
Yes, let's hear your presentation.
Yes. Okay, so I was asked to give a very short presentation, about 20 minutes or so that we have a lot of time for Q&A after. So that's what I did. So let me start by sharing my screen here, my slides. And here we go. And then we also tested yesterday. Let's make sure everything's going to work, and I believe we will. Okay, so here we go. What I was asked to talk today was about how to break the cycle of yo-yo dieting. And as Rosane mentioned in my introduction, I really love to focus on habits, because our habits are the reason why we are going to be able to not only lose weight, but keep the weight off. When we talk about weight loss, it's very easy for us to think that all we have to do is what? Eat less and exercise more. And if that was really true, none of us would ever have problems in losing weight and keeping it off, because it would be very simple math. You eat less and you exercise more. And I'm sure that many of you have tried this quite a few times in your lifetime. And one of the reasons why this does not work is because when it comes to weight gain, caloric intake, not physical activity, is what predicts this weight gain over time, because the math, it's not precise. What we put in our bodies, it's more efficient in regulating our weight than how much energy we expend. I'm now going to be discussing why that is today. In the future, if you want me to come back and discuss that, I will. But today, what I want you to take away from this short presentation is that when it comes to weight, the weight is always lost in the kitchen. And the reason we exercise, that we go to the gym, is that we get cardiovascular and musculoskeletal fitness, and for us to get all of the benefits from physical activity. But with that being said, exercise is very important for weight maintenance. So when the National Weight Registry did the research and they wanted to figure out what were the 4 habits that everybody had in common, everybody that lost at least 30 pounds and were able to keep it off for at least 1 year. So no yo-yo diet, because usually when we start a new diet, so to call, and we focus on just cutting calories, what happens is by the time we reach a point where we lose 10% of our body weight, or between around the 6-month mark, we all hit a plateau and we start regaining the weight. So if you're able to keep the weight off for a year, then we say, yes, you were able to not only lose weight, pass the plateau, and maintain their weight loss. So the 4 habits, the first one is that they weigh themselves at least once a week. And most of them, or many of them, will also weigh themselves daily. Some people weigh themselves twice a day. The second habit that they all had in common is they ate less calories, less energy than they did before. The beautiful thing about following a whole food plant-based diet is that we can do that naturally. We don't need to be really calculating anything or tallying how many calories we are eating every day. It's just natural, because whole plant foods are naturally lower in energy, in calories, compared to the other foods that we used to eat before going plant-based. The third habit is that they eat foods that are naturally low in fat. And you're going to understand that it's very easy for us to think that it has to be low in fat, because when we talk about the 3 macronutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, and fat is the one that brings the most energy by weight. 1 gram of carbohydrates and protein gives us about 4 calories, but 1 gram of fat gives us 9 calories. But there's another reason. It's not just the calories per se, but it is what fat does in our bodies. We're going to be discussing this very soon. And the 4th habit is the exercise. And when I say exercise, I want to say they are physically active. You don't need to go to the gym to get the health benefits of physical activity. You just need to move around more. When we talk about the blue zones, for example, people in the blue zones, who are the 5 regions in the world where people reach the age 100 at 10 times the rate of the rest of the world. Nobody goes to the gym. They don't train for marathons and Ironman, any of that. But any opportunity they have to go grocery shopping, go visit a friend, go to church is an opportunity, an invitation for them to walk. So those are the 4 habits. And like I said, exercise doesn't help with weight loss per se, but it's a habit we need to create because it helps with weight maintenance. And again, going back to the National Weight Control Registry, when it's specifically about weighing yourself, those who have lost 70 pounds or more, about almost 80% of them weigh themselves at least once a week. So there's no excuse. There's no way like, I haven't been good this week, so I'm going to wait to weigh myself next week. Then we're just making the problem worse. We need to face the truth. We will need to weigh ourselves at least once a week. And think about it, Weight Watchers, that's how they work. That's how their business model works, at least for the first 3 months. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 70 or 80% of people, when they join Weight Watchers, they are out after 3 months, because at the first 3 months, everything is party, right? We usually lose the weight until we hit the plateau and people give up. But that's what they do. You need to show up every week and weigh yourself. So the second habit is eat low calorie. And we know that a diet, it's whole food plant-based with no addition of oil, is going to deliver that, not only low calorie, but also lower in calories. And it's very common for us to believe that the only reason, or the main reason why a whole food plant-based diet helps us lose weight and keep the weight off is because, again, like I said, those foods are naturally lower in calories. But the real magic, before I go there, let me just review real fast the energy density. Many of you are familiar with the chart. We know that when we eat whole plant foods, those are the foods on the left of the chart. Naturally, we eat between 3 and 5 pounds of food every day. But if we're eating 3 to 5 pounds of those types of foods, it's very easy for us to be eating between 1,500, 1,800, 2,000 calories for men, or sometimes less. So we don't have to worry about, but those foods need to be whole. As soon as we start just the slightest minimally processed, for example, bread. Can we eat bread? Yes, of course we can. But the thing is, now we are processing the wheat berries now have been processed into flour, and then the energy density of that food shift a little bit. Then everybody asks me about, oh, how about dark chocolate, right? Yes, but it's not a whole food. There's some processing there. So what happens? And it's very caloric. It has addition of sugar, and it has tons of fat. So chocolate is going to be way more to the right of the chart. And the worst offender of all, oil, right? Any food that is on the left of the chart that we add oil, we are bringing the energy density to the middle or even shift it more to the right. So this is one of the reasons that I'm not saying that you did it, but maybe you know someone that just decided, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to eat nothing but salads. But then you get something that is the lowest energy density in the chart on the left, right? The vegetables. And then you add a dressing with oil, which is in the far right. So what happens is the majority of your energy, of your calories and the salad are coming from the right side of the chart, not the left. No wonder you're not able to lose weight. No wonder you went back to regaining the weight. Okay. So the magic around plant-based foods is that they have fiber. Animal foods have zero fiber, and fiber is the reason why we are able to not only lose weight, but keep the weight off. And that's the reason why plant-based foods need to be whole, because if they're not whole, they're not coming with the fiber in it. So what does fiber help us do? Those are the 5 Ds. This was mentioned many years ago in a scientific paper, and it was a discussion that was brought back on Dr. Michael Greger's book, How Not to Die. And so the first D is, let's see if we can get the first D, dilution of calories. I'm going to do both since both came, and the other distension of stomach. So foods that are high in fiber, they help us dilute the calories of that food, and they also help distend our stomach. It's not just fiber, it's fiber and water. Whole plant-based foods tend to be higher in water, and water is even more satiating than fiber is. But so we have stretch receptors in the stomach. Fiber helps us, and also the amount of water in the food both help us distend our stomach. The third reason, the third D why fiber rich or plant-based food, whole plant-based foods help us lose weight and keep the weight off, is that there's a delay in stomach emptying. So the food, when we eat high fiber food versus low fiber foods, the food takes another 45 minutes on average longer to go through our stomach. And this delay causes even more satiety. That's why we can stay for longer periods without feeling hungry. The fourth D is dumping of calories. And this is so amazing. If you guys knew the importance of fiber in that. So what research shows is that when we eat high fiber, on average, we can expect that about 10% of fat calories or 5% of fat calories are going to be dumped. And our number 2 in our poop every single day, because fiber traps that fat and sends it away. And we can expect I believe it's 10% of fat, 5% overall, or is the other way around? I cannot remember, but either way, fat calories, they don't get absorbed, they get dumped with fiber. And overall, our entire diet for a day, we can expect a reduction between 5 and 10% of, we may think that, oh, I've eaten 1,500 calories, but if we have a lot of fiber in a diet, we can expect that around 10% of those calories are not even going to be absorbed because of the presence of fiber. And the last D, which is not a D, but the fifth thing, the reason why we need high fiber foods is what we call ileal break. Ileum is the end of our intestines, and it's in the connection between the small intestine and the large intestine. And if we have fiber, what it means is it takes such a long time for our food to go through our GI tract that by the time it gets to the ileum, we get a signal to our brain that we received proteins or amino acids, we received fat or fatty acids, and also carbohydrates. So when food reaches there, that's when we get the signal of satiety. But if we eat foods without fiber, what happens is the nutrients start being absorbed in the upper part of our gastrointestinal intestine. It never gets to the bottom end, and that's why we never get the signal that we've had enough to eat, one of the reasons. And then the beautiful thing is, if fiber helps us get our food all the way to a colon, fiber is the food for our gut microbes. Our gut microbes digest the fiber because we cannot digest those fibers. And then they produce these magical molecules called short-chain fatty acids, acetate, propionate, and butyrate. And they have different functions. For example, propionate is another reason why food gets delayed in our stomach. It's propionate that makes this stomach delay that I mentioned before, for example. Okay. And then when we produce short chain fatty acids, they do two things. So what you see in this slide is that when we are trying to lose weight by cutting calories only, so we are focusing on how much we are eating, not what we are eating. What happens is that we hit a plateau because the more we lose weight by just focusing how much we are eating, naturally our levels of ghrelin goes up and our levels of leptin go down. When this happens, we are hungry. Ghrelin stimulates hunger, and leptin is the counter. It makes us feel satiated, but if leptin is down, now we are hungry again. But when we eat foods that are high in fiber, short chain fatty acids do exactly what we need it to do. Leptin goes up, telling the brain, I've had enough to eat. I'm great, I'm satiated, and brings ghrelin down, so we are not hungry. And that's the reason why you can go past the 6-month mark where most people hit a plateau, and you can continue to lose weight and you can keep the weight off. So butyrate is another short chain fatty acid. That's one of the functions of butyrate, is to feed our colon cells and to make sure those tight junction proteins are being produced and keeping all our colon cells tightly connected with one another. They like to be friends, to be connected. When that does not happen, we're going to be discussing that next. When we eat high fat, remember I said fat is not just because high fat, or the reason why we want to eat low fat is not just because fats brings a lot more calories into a diet, is because a high fat diet, especially a diet that is high in saturated fat, I think I have it, yeah. What it causes inflammation. It causes what we call dysbiosis, an imbalance in a gut microbiota or microbiome. And then we start losing those tight junctions. We start having gaps between our cells. And then all of the nasty stuff that we don't want going from our colon into a bloodstream start happening. And then when there goes toxins and even the bad guys that we don't want go into a bloodstream, and then causes inflammation and causes something that we call leaky gut. Things that shouldn't be leaking from a colon into a bloodstream now happens. And that's what it starts overweight, and go just back, overweight and obesity. And as long as we don't change what we are eating, we are not fixing the problem. And we may continue to have this low grade chronic inflammation that will continue to drive overweight and obesity. Okay, so how much activity do I need to do? Remember, that's the fourth habit. Exercise, be physically active. And the recommendation is so small. So it's very easy for any of us to do it. It's about at least. So that's the bottom. There's no ceiling. The more active you are, the better. But the bottom is 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes walking your dog, attending your garden, or just doing your grocery shopping, preparing food. You see, that's the beautiful thing about spending the time in the kitchen. You are active, you're cutting your veggies, you are cooking. And when the students here at the School of Medicine ask me and say, what is more important? Of course, both are important. Should I spend 1 hour going to the gym, 1 hour in the kitchen? I always say 1 hour in the kitchen, because you're preparing the food. Remember, food intake is way more powerful when it comes to weight loss than physical activity, but you are also physically active when we are cooking. It's two, you get both activities in one. If you just go to the gym, you come back and then you get something that somebody else prepared, like a takeout, that is going to come, like, not only may sometimes not be plant-based, not be whole food plant-based, and will come with what? Added sugar, oil, and salt. We don't want that. So it's way better that you be physically active in your house while you're preparing a food than going to the gym and then eating something that won't help you with your weight loss. And sometimes you want to think, yeah, but just 20 minutes, 30 minutes of walk, does that make a difference? Yes. And there's a few things that you can do to make it even better. So this was a study that was done in Japan where they compared two groups of people, and many physical activity and exercise studies were done in younger people, right? And college students also. But this study in particular was done with middle-aged and older adults in Japan. And all they did is compare two types of exercise: either walk for 30 minutes at your regular pace, no changing in pace, just walk 30 minutes, or walk the same 30 minutes. And this study, by the way, lasted for 5 months. But in this 5 months, walking 30 minutes every day, but the change that you do is for 3 minutes, you do like up-tempo walking. So you walk faster than you usually do. And then 3 minutes you stroll, 3 minutes up, 3 minutes stroll. And at the end of 5 weeks, those individuals were stronger and fitter than those that just walked at a regular pace. So that's something else that you can do to maximize your 20, 30 minute scheduled exercise, that, so to speak. And again, just to give us an overview of what we discussed, when it comes to weight loss, 4 very important habits we need to keep. 1, weighing ourselves at least once a week, keeping our calorie low, our intake of calorie low, which is easy to do on a whole food plant-based diet, paying attention to the amount of fat, especially saturated fat. So it's very easy for us to find nowadays that vegan foods, what is it that they add to those vegan foods, especially vegan ice cream and such, so that they have the same consistency of the animal equivalents? They add coconut oil and palm oil or palm kernel oil. Those 3, nothing but like saturated fat. The more saturated fat, the more inflammation, and the less likely that you're going to be able to lose weight and keep it off. The 4th habit, be active and exercise, just as going for a walk. Nothing fancier than that. That's the only way that you'll be able to break the cycle of yo-yo dieting, that you have to be willing to change your habits for life. And that's the reason why we started our foundation last year, with the mission to educate and empower people like you to live happier and healthier lives through positive habit change. We need to be able to change our habits, and that includes focusing, adopting, and maintaining a plant-centered, plant-based diet. This is our foundation. I meant to put the website there, but I know Kathy's going to mention to you guys. It's pblife.org. Thank you so much, and I'm open to answer any questions that you may have.
Wow, that was fantastic, Dr. Oliveira. I was taking so many notes. You know, it was really interesting. Before I make this comment, Linda, can you put in the chat the link to the
Yes.
information? That would be really helpful. And if you have any questions, start putting those in the chat too. But, you know, as I listened to that, I was thinking, I'll be darned. I bet a lot of people on Zoom who have lost weight with a whole food plant-based diet saw that they were on Weight Watchers, they were on Atkins, they were on the grapefruit diet, and they'd lose the weight, but it'd always come back. But since we've gotten on whole food plant-based and we continue with that and with our habits, And we do those things you say, eating the lower calories because we are eating whole foods and we're getting plenty of fiber, and fiber's doing all that neat stuff. And we're eating low fat and exercising and stuff. The weight doesn't come back. And it's like you answered the questions why that happens now. Now we know. Thank you so much. It's interesting. I was looking at your resume and I was thinking, here's this person who's going to tell us all these things that are so simple but important. And you've traveled a really different path than most of the other doctors that we've had on here. You started out doing the same thing that one of our mentors did. He wrote the book, The China Study, Dr. Campbell. Can you tell us how your life journey is similar to his, and did he have an impact on you?
Oh, yes, for sure. So it's very interesting. I decided to become a vegetarian when I was 15, so many years ago. And I was just lucky. My mother one day came home and she said, I don't think we should be eating animals. And my sister and I have an identical twin sister. And the two of us said, okay, Mom, we'll go with you. Makes sense. And then we were vegetarian. I was vegetarian for a long time. And then when it came an opportunity for me to choose between going to medical school or veterinary school, I thought at the time, wrongly, that it would be a lot harder for me to deal with death, human death. You're a doctor and you work with someone for such a long time, and then you have to say goodbye. You have to see people die. I didn't think I had the emotional strength. And then I went to vet med, and I can tell you it's a lot worse. People abandon animals left and right. People pay good price for dogs, for horses, for cows. And the first sign that is going to cost $2,000, $3,000 to heal the animal, I'd say, I don't want the animal anymore. And I have so many friends who became vets from my time in vet school, who went on to open their own clinics, right, for pets. And the animals are just abandoned at the doors and they have to find owners. So it's so heartbreaking. And by the time I was my third year, I had an opportunity to spend a semester abroad in Germany. And I thought I wanted to be a clinician. I thought I wanted to work with cows. I was vegetarian, remember? And that's how my path and Colin Campbell's path is very similar. I said, I adored cows. And I say, no, I'm vegetarian. So if I can really work in an industry that helps bring more cheese and ice cream to the world, I'll be happy forever. And then I got an opportunity to work at two different places in Germany, in Hanover, which is considered the best ruminant clinic, right? The best place for you to work with cows as a clinician. I say, yes, I want to go there. But they offered me a paid job at a lab. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take the paid job first, and then I'm going to do my volunteer work. And when I got there, I was so fascinated by research. And I remember after 2-3 days working in a lab, I said, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. This is my passion. So then fast forward, I did my master and my PhD, working still with cows and understanding how is it that they get some infections, disease. I've always worked what we call this area called One Health, where I'm always using animals in my research to understand how diseases happen in human beings. And then 2008, someone recommended that I read the China Study, and I decided to read just out of curiosity. But at the time, I was doing research at the University of Illinois, where we were seeing how food changes gene expression. We are studying cows and how fat in the diet will make them sick or allow them to be healthy. And then I read the China Study, and then everything kind of made much sense to me. First, I was super upset, and I say, how dare this guy say bad things about dairy? But the real thing that I know helped me is that I got the message from someone that it was in my field. So there's no way for me to deny that whatever he was saying was true. I just got upset because I didn't like the truth, right? And I always wondered if I had got my first message about the health benefits of a plant-based diet from somebody else, if it would have had such an impact on me. But the fact that someone that had spent his life working on nutrition for cows to produce more milk, and the way he described all that, the path was so similar that I say, by the time I closed the book, I said, you know what? I have to do it. And I did it. So that's your answer. A little long, but that's it.
Wow, Dr. Oliveira, your presentation was absolutely fabulous. And I loved all of your conversation about fat because it was just beautiful. I do want to know, I want you to go just a little bit deeper because so many people are stuck on the coconut oil, and so I want you to just go a little bit further and discuss that, because there are so many different health claims, and when somebody is grabbing an oil, they think that coconut is going to be the best, you know. So can you please go into more detail for us?
Yes. So some of you that have been maybe following us for a while know that we have a blog that we write about almost anything related to plant-based lifestyle. And now we're going to be starting to write a little bit more about habits as well. And I can say in all of like 4 or 5 years of writing the blog, there were 2 blog posts that got the most heated debate. That was back when the blog was posted on the UC Davis website. Now, since we moved to the foundation, we don't have comments anymore. So you cannot go back and try to see. But I have never got as much grief from people as when we wrote about why you shouldn't eat olive oil. I'm going to touch on coconut oil, but the olive oil is such a sensitive topic. And after this conversation today, actually, I'm recording a class for the School of Medicine. And yesterday I was talking to one of the physicians, and then he said, Rosane, I can't believe you're going to go there. In medical school, you're going to talk about the Mediterranean diet and tell people that it works despite of the presence of olive oil. And I say, yes, I'm going to go there. But so the reason is for coconut oil first, because that was your question. Nothing that is high in saturated fat can be called health promoting. I say, I don't know how this started, but actually I do know how it started. It started with this idea that really people following a ketogenic diet, then you have to consume very high amounts of saturated fat, right? Because fats in general are the reason why they believe that you can sustain long times without eating, right? Most of people that follow ketogenic diet, they also follow what we call intermittent fasting, and they believe wrongly that you need fat to be able to spend 18 hours, 16, 18, sometimes 20 hours a day without eating, which is wrong. And they believe that coconut oil would provide that. And part of the myth is because there is a subset of the fatty acids in the composition of coconut oil that they would call medium chain triglycerides, right? MCTs. And these MCTs, in theory, help you burn a little more fat. So they believe that by eating coconut oil or eating MCTs, you eat fat to burn fat. But the thing is that they forget is like, if MCT is about 50% of the calories that you get in coconut oil, you get another 50% that is long chain triglycerides. And then when you compare, for example, the amount of LCT or long chain triglycerides in coconut oil with the amount that we get in lard, there's more of those very harmful types of triglycerides in coconut oil than in lard. And we all know the lard is not health promoting. So it's just that even yesterday I was looking at someone cooking something plant-based, and it was a dessert, and it had 3 parts, and all 3 parts took coconut oil. Even when she was melting chocolate, she melted chocolate and then she added coconut oil to it. And it's such unfortunate. So that's the reason why the myth continues to perpetuate that it's health promoting, but it's not. I do know that, so every year I'm a co-host or co-chair of a conference on preventive and lifestyle medicine with the Cleveland Clinic, with Dr. Rosane from the Cleveland Clinic. And Dr. Rosane always mentions that when he was working with, I think, I don't remember if it was with the CDC or with FDA, but I remember, or it was some sort related to the National Institutes of Health. And he said, one of the things that we used to do animal studies, and I know that this is another sensitive subject for compassionate vegans, the use of animals in research, but still one of the ways that they would make the animals develop something that resembles dementia or Alzheimer's was by injecting coconut oil into the paws of the animals, because we know saturated fat will lead to chronic inflammation. So did I answer your question about coconut oil? I don't know if you want me to continue to discuss oils in general, but coconut oil, that's the reason. It's not health promoting, never was, never will be.
Well, that was great. And I know olive oil is, just right on up there. But what about nuts in general? What is your recommendation when it comes to, nuts and I guess overall fat consumption? Where is your recommendation?
Great question. Nuts is another area where there's a little bit of controversy, even in the plant-based community. What I can say is the following. Remember during my presentation when I said that fiber helps us dump excess calories? So when there have been studies done where they had different individuals eat different amounts of almonds, for example, it was a very careful study done to see this is the amount of almonds that are going in, and I want to know how much fat is coming out. Yes, they got poop, they measured the weight, and they wanted to see how much fat was coming out. And what they've noticed is that a lot of the fat calories were being dumped along with the fiber. So when we look at just the calorie estimation from nuts, it's not the amount of calories that we are consuming that matters, is the amount of calories that we actually absorb. And then most people have no clue whatsoever to how this is going to happen. So the shape of a food and the way a food is processed also will have an effect on how many calories are absorbed. So nuts, my recommendation always is, if you eat nuts, let them be raw and whole, because then the majority of the calories are going to, maybe not the majority, but a good amount of the fat calories are going to be dumped with the fiber. You're not going to absorb it. But as soon as you roast those nuts, then you start making the fat calories more available to being absorbed in your body. So when you roast, then you absorb more calories. Now, when you roast and you grind, then you absorb even more. So it's when people talk about avoid nuts altogether when you're trying to lose weight or maintain weight, is because people don't understand it's different. There's a difference. The same way it's different for you to choose to eat a wheat berry salad or eating whole grain pasta or eating bread. You may eat 200 calories of three. So different wheat products, 200 calories of wheat berries, you're going to absorb X amount of calories. 200 calories of whole wheat pasta, you're going to absorb a little bit more, not more than 200 calories, but eating wheat berries, you're going to absorb less. And bread is where you're going to absorb the most. Why? Because not only because it's made out of flour, but any food that has air in it is going to allow more surface of the food to be available for digestion and absorption. So we're going to absorb way more calories eating bread than eating whole wheat pasta. And whole wheat pasta, we're going to absorb more calories than eating wheat berry salad. So it's the same with nuts. We just don't think about it. And then when people want to eat nuts, many times they want roasted, they taste better. Not only we are going to absorb more fat calories, our tendency will be to eat more because they taste even better than raw. And many people then just go on eating spoonfuls of peanut butter or almond butter. So there's a difference there. But overall, when we discuss the health benefits, we know that when you talk about the Mediterranean diet, one of the main components why the Mediterranean diet is health promoting is because it's related to the addition of nuts. Yes, it is. Some people say you don't need to go overboard to try and bring them in, but nuts by themselves are health promoting. And if you want to choose to eat them raw, and it's going to help you dump more of the fat calories, and it's also going to help you not eat as many as you would if they were roasted or if they were ground into a butter.
Right.
Dr. Oliveira, I have a question. If a person is following a whole food, plant-based diet and no oil, and they're losing weight and they've lost more weight than they want to lose, how would you tweak that? Is the fiber the issue, or how would you go about fixing that?
Okay, so we see this problem mostly with men, not with women. Men and women are very different in the way we burn calories. So, but it's something that we see men do. So in that case, for men, it is good to increase the amount of healthy fats in the diet. So sometimes men are very concerned about losing muscle mass as well. So they don't want to bring their intake of protein too low. So one of the things that these men can do is add more soy foods. Don't need to go overboard. Beans in general are always health promoting, and beans are the one food that connects all of the 5 blue zones. Again, the blue zones are the areas where people reach age at 100 at 10 times the rate of the rest of the world. And if there's one food that you find in all of them, there's like fruits and vegetables or in whole grains, but legumes is the only one they say that it's linked to longevity. And so soy is going to naturally be higher in fat. So for example, black beans, 1% of the calories come from fat. Garbanzo beans, 2-3%. Soy, 30%. Like tofu, 30%. Tempeh, even higher. So it's whole food. Tempeh is fermented whole soybeans, but tempeh is going to even have a higher fat calorie percentage compared to tofu. So bring those foods, tempeh or tofu, into your diet. You can eat the roasted nuts, because nuts are also going to be very high in protein, but they're going to have a higher fat content compared to other foods. So continue to eat whole plant foods, but bring the ones that have more fat content, so that you are able to keep your weight and not continue to lose weight. And
that would apply for a female as well, who maybe who's maybe working with heart disease and trying to manage that as well.
That's a different story. Dean Ornish and Caldwell Esselstyn will be against any nuts in the diet. So then you may want to then focus on tempeh or tofu. There's going to have more fat, but not so much from nuts. I do know that Esselstyn said when it comes to seeds, if it's ground flaxseed or ground chia seeds, you can continue to add. And I believe he was getting to accept a little bit of walnuts because of all of the nuts. Walnuts are the only ones that are going to have the perfect ratio of omega-3 and omega-6. Like almonds are going to have the worst of them all. They're going to have a lot more omega-6 than omega-3. And when we discuss omegas in general, what we see happen, and it includes people following a whole food plant-based diet, is that people have what we call a relative omega-3 deficiency. And it's not that they're deficient of omega-3, it's because the ratio is very important. We want to have a ratio of 4 omega-6 for 1 omega-3. And people that follow standard diet or a Western diet, usually the ratio is around 20-1. So we need to bring that down. And that's another reason why oils should be a no-no in our diet, especially a plant-based diet, because oils, the majority of oils are going to be way higher in omega-6 than omega-3. So we're bringing oils into a diet. We are inundating ourselves with omega-6, and we're not getting enough omega-3. But of all the nuts, walnuts have a perfect 4-1 ratio. And I remember once I ate at their house and they had some sort of dressing that was based out of walnuts, and he was okay with that, with his patients eating small amounts of walnuts. And if you go back to the PREDIMED study that was published in 2013, PREDIMED stands for like the use of the Mediterranean diet for the secondary prevention of cardiovascular disease. And in that study, they had 3 arms. One arm that they call the control, just eat as you're eating. Actually, the advice was eat low fat, but nobody did that. So it was just eat as you usually have been eating. And then the other group, they had continue to eat your diet, but eat extra virgin olive oil every day. And the third group, eat nuts. And those nuts, the majority was walnuts. And that group did better. They had less myocardial infarction, way less stroke. So walnuts, that if you're going to make an exception, if you have cardiovascular disease, you can talk with your physician, of course. It's not my recommendation, but walnuts would be the one that I would choose to eat sometimes.
Thank you.
Dr. Oliveira, I'm going to jump in here because we had a question that was also related to heart disease. And since you were quoting the research from Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Ornish, I thought we could address this one right now. How long does it take to see a substantial decrease, Rochelle asked, in high cholesterol when you go on a whole food plant-based diet with no oil?
To tell you the truth, if you're coming from a standard diet, Western diet, and you go all in, you're going to see results in a week. And in 3 weeks, Esselstyn said in 3 weeks, you are heart attack proof, even if your cholesterol hasn't got to the point where you want. So those are the things that he says. But yeah, and sometimes when we see people go spend a week in some retreat, they can see massive changes already. So it can be super fast or not. It depends on how much of a change you're willing to do and how much you do all at once.
Okay, Dr. Oliveira, we got several questions here. One of them asked on nuts, what about those using peanut butter powder, the rehydrate with water versus peanut butter that is traditionally made? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I didn't know people were doing that. I would think it's the same thing. You know, you created a powder and now you are mixing with water. I would say when it comes to weight, it's going to be just as bad for your weight as regular peanut butter. And it may be worse. I don't know if you're starting with a powder and then you mix it in, or it may be just the same. But if you're not concerned about weight loss and this is something that you enjoy and you don't have cardiovascular disease, then you may be able to keep it. I'm not against peanut butter. I have many recipes that have peanut butter as part of the sauce. I make a delicious tofu pad thai that has it. We have on our website fried, no oil, fried rice, tofu fried rice that people absolutely love. Anytime I'm cooking for non-plant-based eaters, I love to use foods that are naturally higher in fat, because this is something they're going to miss. You cannot expect someone that is eating Western diet to come eat at your house and you're going to serve them everything very low fat, because it's not going to taste good for them. So those are part of my recipe repertoire that when I make, even non-plant-based eaters don't even miss the presence of any animal foods. So I'm not against peanut butter, and you can use it, but you just need to know that when it comes to weight loss, it's not going to be your friend as some other foods that are lower in fat.
And, it's interesting because we've heard from several people in the chat box. You may not have seen peanut butter flour. Have you seen that before?
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, that when they make it into flour, they take a lot of the fat out.
Okay.
That was really where that was coming from. And that is kind of an interesting question, because you think, well, it's ground up, so that makes it not whole, yet it has less fat. So it's complex.
But is it roasted before it becomes a flour? I can look it up. I think it's interesting. The other day, someone asked me something about oat milk, because it may not be relevant, but since we are talking about it. So when you see our oat milk in the grocery store and you read the label, it's now there was a ruling by the FDA that oat milk needs to list their sugar content as added sugar. And then people say, when you read the label and say, what are the ingredients? Oats and water, or oats and or something else. When you say, where is the sugar coming from? Where is the added sugar? The thing is, for you to make oat milk, in the industry at least, you have to process the oats in a way that turn the sugar into maltose. So, and then maltose is what you're going to find in the milk. So when you're drinking oat milk, you are drinking maltose, and maltose is a simple sugar, and this needs to be considered as added sugar. And if someone asked me about a company that sends powder milk, plant-based milk to your home, and then you just mix the powder and the water, and they wanted me to know, is the same thing. And it took me a while. I went to their website and I investigated, and sure enough, they say, yes, our oats are hydrolyzed, and sure enough, it's the same process. So in that case, there was no difference between buying oat milk in the grocery store or making your own from the powder. There's nothing else but powdered oats. But when you mix with the water, you should expect that it's going to have maltose, and it should be considered added sugar, believe it or not.
Linda, did you have a question?
Yes, Gary is wondering what your position is on using animals for research.
Oh, tough question. So I'm a researcher, and over my lifetime, I worked in a few labs that used animals for research. I worked for 2 years at a U.S. Army lab in Brazil that was studying tropical diseases. They were studying malaria and leishmaniasis. And it was part of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. Many of you may have heard of them. And so my position is that I can see the benefit, the higher benefit that research, the insights that we can get from the research. And I have my personal choice of not participating in it. I remember that my boss needed to see in this lab, we kept the entire cycle of both diseases, malaria and leishmaniasis. and it was kept in hamsters. And my boss had to kill hamsters and dissect them. She couldn't kill them, but she could dissect them. And there was someone in the lab that had no problem killing them. I had problems with both, so I had to have a conversation with her, and I said, I'm sorry, whatever you have to do with animals, you do with animals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do because I worked on molecular biology, so we work with DNA. We all work with things that you don't see, what's inside the nucleus of the cell. So I don't see any animals, but I know where the DNA is coming from. So I learned to work in that type of environment. So it's complicated. It's not easy, but I do know, like, for instance, something that is very close to us right now, the COVID vaccine, for example. I've known vegans who do not want to take the vaccine because the vaccine was tested in animals. And I'm not trying to change anybody's position on that, but the vaccine was also tested in humans. Any drug is tested first. First, they are tested in vitro, so that's stage 1. Then stage 2, they are tested in animals. Then stage 3 and 4, they are tested in humans. It's not that we humans are not tested either. We are. It's just that it goes through those stages. So when it comes to animals in research, I'm in peace. There are people that can do it, and that we get insights from it. Like Colin Campbell, why was he able to show that casein causes cancer? Is because when you study in animals, when you study mice reproduce faster, and we can see the onset of disease a lot faster in weeks and months versus years. If we were to test casein in humans and wait 15 years until a cancer can develop, we cannot have the insight here. So he was able to teach us some things because he did animal research. I don't know how he feels about it now. He may not like it anymore. Once you change and you are plant-based, it's very hard for you to go back. But I see the value of it. And then for people that are okay with it, I'm thankful for the benefits, and I'm thankful that I don't need to do the research myself. Did that answer your question? Okay.
I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
It was a tough one to answer, and you did a nice job.
Okay.
We've got one question, and we have got to ask this. This is from Claudia, and Claudia is in Australia, and she has stayed up until 3:00 to
beautiful.
So she comes to our Zooms, but she's really concerned because she has been using coconut oil, and she is plant-based and has been for decades. And so she's just saying, if I were going to use coconut oil, is it 10% or 20% that should be coconut oil versus olive oil? Does she really need to think about pulling back on the coconut oil? What's your advice as she begins to look at this issue?
All right. Well, first, thank you for staying up. Thank you for getting up so early and for staying up for this conversation. What I tell people about coconut oil is keep your coconut oil at home. Just move it from the kitchen to your bathroom and start using on your skin and on your hair, but outside of your body, never inside of your body. That's my honest answer. Coconut oil has no business in the kitchen. It should never have been there and shouldn't continue to be there. And then the other thing that I say is that if you must still cook with oil, then olive oil is going to be the least detrimental of them all. The other one that is also the only type, one of the few, or not the only type of oil that has not been shown to lead to endothelial dysfunction is canola oil. The problem that most people have with canola oil is the way it's produced. It's heavily processed. So, but those two would be the ones that people, if they chose to keep something, it would be canola oil. If you are okay with having something that is highly processed, and if you don't know how canola oil is produced, you just Google and say, how is canola? They have videos showing so many chemical processes. But canola oil, when Vogel did the research to see how high-fat foods and specifically oils will have an effect on endothelial function, canola oil is the one that did not show an effect on FMD, flow-mediated dilation, while even olive oil did. But olive oil is not as processed, and it's not going to be causing the same harm as coconut oil or palm oil or lard or butter or any of this. And as a comparison, is going to be less detrimental. It's not going to be health promoting, but if you have to have something, then would be olive oil. And I teach that too when people ask me, when I cook for non-plant-based eaters at home, most of my recipes, I'm going to always cook without oil. But there's one or two recipes that they simply will not work for non-plant-based eaters without oil. And I use olive oil to cook for them. I don't need it, but I like Thanksgiving, or like my husband is Jewish. We're getting ready to prepare a Jewish Seder in a week. It's a week from today. Yeah, it's a week from today. And I'm honest, I said there are two recipes that require oil. You cannot make vegan matzo balls without oil. They just don't work. I don't eat them, but it's just the reality. But my husband is plant-based and he doesn't care to have oil in his diet. And his friends that he invites, they are not even plant-based. And the fact that they are coming to our house, eating our 100% plant-based Seder, is enough to make me happy. And I make this exception. I make the matzo balls for them. So.
Okay. All right. Well, boy, we want to be respectful of your time, and you've just done a great job. We do have something for you, though, that came in the mail. So why don't you open that?
Yes.
All right.
Can I show it?
Yes, show us.
Well, first, I got this beautiful DNA pin. Love it. And I got something that I really needed. I'm so excited. Yay, look at this.
It's an apron.
Oh,
An
wonderful.
apron.
Our foods.
Oh.
This is fantastic.
Now, show us the quote. Show us the quote again, and then tell us.
Excellent.
Nutritional genomics, our foods and lifestyle choices affect the genes. I'm so touched. I can't believe it. It was made for me. Look at this. What a great gift.
Your quote, Dr. Oliveira. That's your quote.
Yes.
Tell us what that means real quick. What does it mean what is nutritional I can't say it.
Yes, nutritional genomics. Yeah, it's the area that got me started in this path. It means that anything that happens in our environment has the potential, and it does change our gene expression, and particularly food, because it's one of the most intimate relationships we have with the environment. We are bringing something from the environment into our bodies. And usually people like to say that, yes, environment or lifestyle, you may have the bad genes, right, that loads the gun, but your diet will trigger the disease. But I like to say it's lifestyle in general. Lifestyle loads the gun as well, and lifestyle and diet will pull the trigger. So that's the importance of paying attention to what we are eating, because what we are eating is changing which genes are being turned on and off, and we want the good genes to be on and the bad genes to be off. Me say something, what I was going to say, it's been such a pleasure. I know Kathy and I have been in communication for a few months. I was scheduled to speak with you guys a few months back. I'm so glad that this happened. Such a wonderful way to start my Friday. I'm just delighted that I was here, and I absolutely loved my gift. Nothing better than actually getting a gift that you're going to use, and I'm going to use it.
Well, thank you. We just so appreciate you being here, and we appreciate the people who came to the Zoom too. And remember, it'll be on YouTube. Thank you, Dr. Oliveira.
Bye.
Thank you.